Long Hay, we'll look at your motion images. So first up, panning. Nice job. A nice job on the assignment overall. So good job here on the panning. Gives a sense of being there, you know, like in the middle of the road. So I like the effect that you got here with the panning. Good job. So the same subject moving. Good job. So used a fast shutter speed here, an 8,000th of a second, very fast. The only thing is they look as if, you know, the traffic is stopped. So and in fact, there's so much traffic, we can imagine that it was stopped anyway, right? So we don't get a sense of motion here, but of you know, stopped traffic. In this image, used a 15th of a second, and we're just starting to get a little sense of motion here, for example, with this car. It's a little blurry. But I think a much slower shutter speed would be more effective to show the motion. I'm not sure that this situation would be the best one for that, and I don't know exactly where you were. Maybe an over, it looks as if you're on an overpass, but perhaps a different situation where subjects are moving more quickly, and so you don't have to rely on such a slow shutter speed to show motion. Okay, and finally your two images here, beautifully caught. What a lovely image. It's just very beautiful, and looks as if it's an egret, not something that one generally sees in the city. So lovely, very nicely captured here at 1/2500th, I think, 1/2500th of a second. And then here at, I do not see that the shutter speed was recorded here, unfortunately, but obviously a long shutter speed. We see these trails of light very beautifully. Yeah, very nicely done. I also want to point out this beautiful starburst sort of effect that one gets when using a smaller aperture. So you used f/16 here, and even the moon has that beautiful effect. It's really very pretty, isn't it? So had you shot this with a large aperture, let's say f2.8 or f4, and exposed correctly, you would just have seen blobs of light. And it's as one stops down the aperture that you get more of this starburst effect. So nice job overall. Very nice job overall, Long Hay. Ravine, look at your motion images. So this section says two images of moving, beautifully captured here. Unfortunately, the metadata for your images didn't come through. I don't know why. So I cannot see what the shutter speed and aperture were set to. So if you could put those into the titles, that would be great. But beautifully captured here. So obviously freezing motion. Let me come in closer. Yeah, really nicely captured there. This image, it seems to be showing some motion, so you're just starting to see a little blur. I think it works very nicely, and the man's preoccupation with whatever it is he's doing, probably a phone, works nicely. But I think a slower shutter speed would work even better to really show the blur of his motion. Okay. Beautiful job on both of these panning images. Really have a sense of this guy just sort of gliding through, you know, casually passing through the scene. And this one also very, very nicely captured. You know, it's all about the bicyclist and his, you know, that he's looking around and what he's experiencing. So yeah, great job on both of these. And in these guys, again, I don't have the metadata. I would say that you froze the motion here very nicely but we can't tell that the ball was actually in motion because you froze the motion. So possibly a subject that is more obviously in motion both when you freeze the motion and show motion with a slower shutter speed. So usually something in midair works pretty well for that. This image showing motion could use a slower shutter speed because we're just starting to see a little bit of motion. So a slower shutter speed so we can really see the blur of the ball as it passes through the frame. And then for this one, maybe you want to throw the ball, maybe not inside, I don't know. But, you know, have the ball in a moving situation where we can tell that it's in motion even when you've frozen the motion with the use of a fast shutter speed. Okay. All right. Very nice job overall, Praveen. Thank you. Katie Min. All right. Very nice job on this assignment overall. So let's take a look at these guys. 1/2500th of a second, and then 1/40th of a second. And you're showing the motion beautifully here, even at a 40th of a second, which is slow, but not incredibly slow. In this image, you definitely froze the motion beautifully. It's not that easy to tell that the flag was actually in motion, although it is not just, you know, hanging down. So there was probably wind to hold it up that way. So overall, very nice job on this set. And then your different subjects, very beautifully captured. So 1/1600th of a second here, beautifully stopping the motion of the water. The light on it is just lovely. And then 1/20th of a second with the ball coming down here. Very nicely captured motion here. Oops, that's too close in, isn't it? Yeah, so very nicely done. And you isolated it very nicely as well. So good job. Panning. Okay, good. 1/60th of a second, car passing through the frame. Good. And this one I think works very nicely. I think you were spinning and captured of course, froze the motion in a way of this keychain necklace, and show the motion of the background relative to the camera really beautifully. So very, very nice job overall, Katie. Very nicely done. David. Okay, let's look at your images here. You've made some really nice images and did some good work with showing motion, but I think perhaps you didn't understand the assignment. So go ahead and reread it. So with each of the motion sets, you're supposed to make one image that shows motion, a blur of motion, and another image that stops or freezes motion. So you've shown the blurry image, you know, the blurred effect quite well by using a slow shutter speed, but you did not make another image using a fast shutter speed to freeze or stop the motion. This one is a little kind of haphazard. The horizon is not horizontal, and I'm not quite sure why. You know, I don't see an obvious reason for that. This image works very nicely in terms of showing motion. Your panning images look fine. They're both, in a way, they're the same image, however. You know, this car, I don't know if it's the same car, but it's very similar one, doing the same thing. Okay, so perhaps another panning image, it's up to you. You don't have to redo it. But if you do, another one in a different subject, perhaps, in a different situation. I like this one better. I like this. I like the green, the streak of green, and the red above the car. And I think it's framed more formally, and I think it works better for that reason. This one seems just a little more haphazard. Okay. And then showing motion, again, both of these images are showing motion using a slow shutter speed, but you don't have an image that freezes the motion. So, and this image also is, again, a little bit haphazard. It's, you know, the horizon is not horizontal. I don't see, I guess you know, the train is moving a little bit. It's a little blurry. But there isn't really a center of the image, a specific subject, I think, that we're supposed to be looking at. So you might want to rethink that. This image works well really well for showing motion. I really like what happens here with the feet. That's just amazing, isn't it? So that's definitely a keeper. But if you want to redo the other images, that would be great. Okay. Thank you, David.